This episode of Jump Off Point is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the Boss Rush family of podcasts, head to bossrush.net or our Patreon at patreon.com/bossrushmedia. Thanks for helping us build something better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jump Off Point here on Boss Rush Games. I'm your host and light excited Eddie V. Joining me is the wise Wrestle Knight himself, Mr. Josh Martinez. Hello, good sir.
Hello, Ed. It's just you and me again tonight, but I think we got some good. I've got some good topics to discuss today.
Oh, I got a good pointed out topic to discuss because when I read something and Corey knows this, I was about to go off, but we will get to that. How you been, Josh?
Man, it's the end of the year. My son is graduating preschool, and so it's exciting. He's my oldest. I mean, I've got a daughter who's 1.5, and then my son is going to be 5 here in a couple months. But yeah, he finishes up preschool and he will head off to kindergarten. It's been very stressful because my son has autism, so we've been it's a lot of extra stuff to learn between he's gone to a specialized preschool for the past 2 years, and now we're working on the type of kindergarten he's going to go to. So it's cool. He's made a lot of progress. He's made a lot of growth, and we've all learned. He's just got his own way of doing things. It's just I don't know. It's a really reward. It's tough, but it's really rewarding. Working with somebody with special needs. But it's a lot of. I wouldn't trade it. So there's a little insight into myself.
It's weird working at Toys R Us. I actually had to learn about working with kids with disabilities like autism and stuff like that. And the reason why is because when you're in an area that you don't really see a lot of that, or you haven't been around kids um who live with autism and things like that, you kind of just like, I don't know what to do in a situation um when I'm around that person. Like if something goes off or something happens, I don't know what to do. So working at toys, I literally had to learn. And one of the things is like, you gotta be patient with them. You can't be
Hmm.
like, I don't want to be around. I'm like, no, you got to be patient because you gotta learn um from them. I have this one boy, for some unknown reason, it's like he never seen a black person. So he started touching and rubbing my skin like I was a genie in a nap. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. And I just looked at her. I was just like, yeah, it's human skin. It's if it's just like yours and everything. And I didn't mind. It was just like he's a kid and stuff. But I
Well,
had
what's funny
okay.
about that is that kind of what I've learned. So my son's had a diagnosis now for 3 years, and so I've learned a little bit about it. What's cool is a lot of children with autism, their minds are just for the longest time, a lot of people used to think, oh, something's wrong with them. But really, what
Hmm.
it is their mind are just wired differently to do things a certain way. And they process information a certain way. And it's a lot of the time very outside of the box of what, you know, typical kids might think. So in the instance with that kid, just from what I know from um, my son's very literal. So if I'm trying to kind of joke with him,
Hmm.
he'll take it way too literally, and that's just because his mind just processes things that way. So if a kid, you know, I'm assuming his parents were white, he's probably thinking, well, my parents are white, so that means that there's only white people ever in the world. It's just a very rigid thinking, so that when
Hmm.
something kind of messes up what they perceive as a routine, it's so it throws them off, and they're just like they don't know how to process that. So that's why that kid's probably treating you like you were the genie of the lamp, because he's like, I what? I thought there was only like my parents are white. Why is this guy looking different? It's just interesting, and when you understand it that way, it's kind of for
Hmm.
me. Because before I would have been like, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I've got brown skin. I don't look like a lot of the people I grew up around here in Utah, but it's I don't know. It's interesting, and it can be it's unique. It's something different, but yeah, it's I mean, hearing that story, I kind of now that I've been in this community for so long, I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to pinpoint why why children with autism might do something like that, and
It's
it's always quirky and it's funny, and but for them, they're just like, you blew his mind just by being you.
exactly. Well, the thing I learned at Toys with kids, especially with the store that I was at was right by the police station. We would have a lot of police come in looking around for certain kids because they just walked out the house and didn't tell their parents. Their mental health was just something that was different around that time. Just and they'd be like, well, the kid's been gone since like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it'll be like almost like 7:30, and I'm like, you guys are now just calling trying to look for your kid. Like it was very weird, and we never was able to find the kid or the child. We didn't get no description, or we didn't really get no pictures or anything, and the parents never called us. So it kind of at times felt scary because where would a kid go in an area that, yeah, it's a different lot of neighborhoods and stuff, but I'm like, it's mainly a Jewish neighborhood. There's a park, there's a highway and a train station, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a kidnapper around here. Like, there's a lot of wooded areas around here, and that gets very scary when you think about a police person, coming in and telling you that a kid is gone, has just left
Hmm.
the house and stuff. And regardless of what the age is, it's a very scary idea. And when you don't have any visualization of the kid, it's hard to tell if that kid came in or not, and it got very scary around that time. And it happened like it at one point it started happening like 2 or 3 times a week, and it was just like, what is going on? And it was never the same kid. It was just random random children leaving the house.
I cannot watch that show, Abducted in Plain Sight,
Hmm.
because I would terrify me as a parent. That just we had an incident with my son about a month ago. He like I was working on the yard, and my wife was helping me with something, and my son just decided to go around the block. Didn't tell us, didn't anything. Was terrifying. I was like, where in the world did he go? I was so scared. And then like my neighbor on a busy street found him and helped walked him back and everything. But I was like, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this with like the more kids I have. Just this is terrifying as a parent. So yeah, I mean, it's funny because if you before I had kids, I probably would have had no problem watching that show Abducted in Plain Sight on Netflix
Hmm.
or anything like that. But now that I'm older, like seeing that or seeing some of the gruesome stories you read about children, when something happens to them, or it just it breaks my heart, and it's like it's just been different as a parent. So yeah, like I mean, man, the it always breaks my heart hearing stories about kids who just disappear like that and all that, especially because I'm like I grew up in a little bit of a rougher neighborhood in Los Angeles, and
Hmm.
you know my parents didn't like us leaving the we had a long driveway, and there was like a duplex behind our house, and we just couldn't leave that, and then they just wanted us playing in the driveway, and there was a ton of room, but still I wasn't allowed to go out. The Toys R Us was like a block away, and I wasn't allowed to walk down there on my own. So yeah, I mean I get what it's like to grow up in a little bit of a rougher neighborhood, because where I lived at was not the best area of the LA suburbs. So yeah, no,
Hmm. Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah, it was, but somehow I guess the police ended up finding the kids. I just don't know where though. And
Yeah,
never and nothing. They never got reported that there was a murder or anything like that. Um, and stuff.
that's
So
always
that
good to
was
hear.
kind of that. Yeah, that really is good to hear, man. I could literally tell you just the weird stories that had happened at Toys R Us, the crazy stories that happened at JC Penney would drop a lot of people's jaws. Just like they were good googly moogly a lot to be like what I'm like yeah, and it's funny out of not between those stores because I worked at those stores for 9 years to
Hmm.
have all of those stories that I accumulated, and I was talking to another manager today at my current job, and I told him like out of everything that has happened, I'm waiting for two things literally to happen. And then I feel like my whole retail story stuff would be complete besides being robbed by Gump. And I said, one would be a woman in the bathroom giving birth to a baby, or two, an old man on the toilet in the men's room dead.
Oh my goodness.
Just sits down, just sits down, uses the bathroom, heart gives out, and they're dead. And no one notices, no one, says anything. And if I'm checking like, a person just like my granddad or someone went into the bathroom and it's been like 45 minutes. Can you go check them? And I'll have to go in and be like, sir, you okay? And if I don't hear nothing, I would have to. I know everybody. I have to get on the ground and crawl underneath the bathroom. Because there's no other way to open it. I would have to go underneath, crawl up the bathroom, and his pants is down, and I see everything, and he's dead. It is what it is. I mean, and it's definitely touched to see if his heart or to see if he's asleep or anything. But like, if he's dead, then I'm gonna have to go out. Definitely um put cones and stuff and then just tell my associates I'm like call the ambulance or call the police, we got a dead body in the store. And then tell that person, be like, hey, come along with me, uh and make sure that our keys covered up and stuff, and just be like, look, I went in, I crawled under, and that person is dead. uh, and
Man,
then
this is a heck of a way to start this podcast today.
it is, but I was just like that would be the craziest thing that I'm just waiting for. I have had a person have their period and leave all their blood and stuff in the toilet and locked. And somehow they were able to. I guess they locked the door. They crawled under the bathroom under the stall and left the store. I don't know who it was, but um, some of the women wanted to get in that stall and they couldn't, and I had to go under. And when I looked, it was just all this blood in the toilet, and because in paper towels and not paper towels, toilet paper on it, and I was just like, so.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in retail for a little bit, high school, and a little bit after my 2 year mission. I worked at it was a grocery store, not like a big chain or like J.C. Penney's or Toys R Us. It just was a local grocery store, and I
Mhm.
mean, I relate to that. Not that I had that bad, but yeah, there's the things you find having to clean the bathrooms is something I don't wish upon anybody. There's so be kind when you're doing stuff.
Exactly. Well, everybody, we're gonna get into our first section. What's jumping? Um, yeah, Josh, what's jumping on your side?
So, couple things. It's I've been in this weird from a game perspective. I've been in this weird juggling act since last week. Final Fantasy 16 came out, and I haven't
Yes.
finished Tears of the Kingdom. So I've been
Same.
basically just like every other night playing one of them. They're both. I've been having a blast with both of them, but I'm like, man, they knew what they were doing putting these two games together. I mean, so far, I mean, it's hard to compare them just given that there's just completely different games, and I'm having a blast with both of them. But juggling them has been so because it's like I'll play Tears of the Kingdom for a little bit and I'm hooked, and then I'm like, okay, I need to play. Like I'll play for a little bit, and then I'll go play Final Fantasy, and then I get hooked on that one, and so then I'm like, well, maybe I'll try every other night. I'll play Tears of the Kingdom this next night, and then I'll go back to Final Fantasy, and then I'm like, man, this is just so hard. So I've been juggling these two games for the last week, and it's been, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but I'm like, I can't even just sit down and pick one to finish up first and come back to the other because I'm so into both of them right now. So yeah, those are the two games I've been really hitting hard. I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom longer since that one came out back in May, and Final Fantasy just came out last week. Um,
Hmm.
and so gaming wise, that's what I've been playing a lot of. TV wise, Ed, have you heard of a show called Dark Side of the Ring?
It sounds familiar, but I haven't seen it.
So it's a docu series from Vice, and it's all about like controversial topics in wrestling. So like when like the stories of maybe a wrestler dying young, or
Uh huh.
I just watched one last night on this guy Dr. D. Dave, his name was Dr. D. David Schultz, and he slapped an ABC News reporter when he asked him if wrestling was fake. So it's stuff that's not like it's exploring topics that are not like the best, like the things that shine good stuff on wrestling, but it's really interesting. Like this one, and this is back in the 80s when we had this discussion when we talked about the Iron Sheik a couple of weeks ago about how these wrestlers were really trying to maintain character
Yes.
before Vince McMahon blew the doors off of everything and said, no, this is scripted. But that's why the Dr. D he slapped the reporter because Vince McMahon told him to go out and talk to the reporter in character, and he's got a point on this one. Dr. D's like, well, my character would have slapped the guy if he suggested wrestling was fake, so I slapped him twice. And I'm like, you're not wrong. But it's like it was caught on camera. It was like for an expose for 2020, and yeah, it was. Yeah, it's there's been some fascinating topics. There was the one of I watched a couple weeks ago about Chris Benoit and
Hmm.
how he murdered his wife and son back in 2007. I watched one about oh what
What happened? What happened with him? Did he kill himself too?
yeah, so it was a double murder suicide, and the explanations were really coming down to they think he had a mixture of like CTE, like from all the chair shots and the wrestling, and brain
Hmm.
damage to his head. There was people blaming steroids. There was people blaming like mental health because he was best friends with Eddie Guerrero, who died a year and a half before Benoit did all this, and like this documentary did a good job at like exploring all the different angles of it and how he almost brought down wrestling. Like this dude loved wrestling, and because he did that, like wrestling shifted like great because it went from being the crazy bloody stuff that dominated the 90s and the 2000s to being
Yeah.
a lot more of a PG product because they eliminated chair shots to the head because the optics from having one of their wrestlers kill his wife and son and then kill himself is like not something you really want on there. So they tried in '09. They really was shifted to the PG product rather than having the TV 14. But now, if you get a chance, it's on Hulu. Dark Side of the Ring, really interesting.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a wrestling fan, it's a lot of it's there. It's kind of a true crime. Also, some of the stuff is a little bit more wrestle focus, like the Montreal screw job, where the WWF screwed Bret Hart out of the title right before he went to WCW, and that's not nobody died in that one, and that's more of a wrestling focused one. But then there's some that are
Yeah.
more true crimey, so highly recommend that anybody who enjoys those kinds of docuseries. I've loved it.
Bret,
It's very well
it
done.
it feels like Bret Hart had a very vengeful, just hateful outlook for wrestling. Like
Yeah.
I think after Owen Hart died, something in him just changed. Like a light switch just changed.
Well, and
Um,
following him, it was a couple of things. It was kind of a build, and I think Owen Hart was kind of the catalyst for that. But
mhm,
so I mean, Bret Hart's always kind of been that clean cut dude. Wrestling's a certain way. He's a very technical wrestler. Put the hold, submission, stuff like that. And the way that the WWF was going at the time was to the Attitude Era, where a lot more of the kind of the crazier antics, less wrestling and more entertainment. I mean, your favorite clip of Stone Cold Steve Austin hitting Vince McMahon in the head with the bedpan. I mean that was what wrestling was becoming at WWF, and Bret Hart was your old school dude. No, we actually wrestle, like it's still predetermined, but he's like
mhm.
the more technical side. And as that shift was going on, he was getting more and more frustrated. He had his issues with Shawn Michaels, and then on his way out the door, they had agreed to have the title kept on Bret Hart, and then Vince screws it and makes it so that he loses it in at the end of '97 and gives the title to Shawn. And then so he goes over to WCW. He's bitter already at WWF. Then Owen dies, and that guys kind of was like the final nail there. He's like, well, this company has done nothing good for my family. I'm not gonna like it. Took him like I think it was '07 or '08 before he finally came back and made amends with Vince and Shawn. So yeah, it's Bret Hart is an interesting dude. Highly respect the dude, but he's definitely got an axe to grind with WWE.
Yeah, I not it just when he came back, his presence, the way that he looked, just felt like all like he given up on life and he just doesn't care. But he just still has a hate for WWE and what it
He's
did.
got a hate for modern wrestling. Period. Like he's always out here, and that's not real wrestling. And I mean, the times have changed than from when he was like the top guy. So
Hmm.
it's kind of your old man yelling at the young kids to get off their lawn with their newfangled toys and all that. I mean, it's wrestling's different than it was back in the '90s. So but yeah, every time something happens, he's always you can always count on a clip from Bret Hart saying, "That's not real wrestling. They're doing this and this and this, and when I was wrestling, this is what I did." So
Hmm.
love him or hate him, Bret Hart's here to stay for however much longer we have him.
Exactly. I think one wrestler I will always love and cherish is Mysterio. Like I think ever since he came on the scene, he has been one of my faves in wrestling. And
One,
just
sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No,
I
go
was
ahead.
saying he's a dude who's done a lot for like the Latinos out there because now I mean I don't know if you know he got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame earlier this year. He's wrestling his son. Um,
Yeah, I see the clip of that.
yeah, that I mean that's just nuts because we all longtime wrestling fans remember when him and Eddie Guerrero fought for the custody of Ray's son back in 2005. So
Mhm.
now his son is old. He's the biggest bad guy in WWE, and Ray's still out here doing. Ray's gonna be like 90 years old and still wrestling. That dude is
But he
like forever
still
young.
look, he still look buff and he got it. I'm like, I know you under a mask, Rey Mysterio, but you still got it.
Well, that's the thing. So I don't know if you remember from the '90s the LWO, that it was like the
Yeah.
Latino World Order. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so Ray brought that back with a lot of younger Latino wrestlers. And they paid tribute to Eddie Guerrero. I mean, WrestleMania this year, Ray came out in the lowrider and the bouncing hydraulics car, like a shout out to Eddie Guerrero, and he came out to Eddie Guerrero's music. So yeah, I mean, he's he's really like become a mentor to a lot of the Latino wrestlers out there and played a big role in like so they did one of their pay-per-views in Puerto Rico and he was
Uh-huh.
like a big part of like kind of that Latino movement. Cause Bad Bunny was wrestling a guy and they did and Ray was like a big part of like helping that along with a guy named Savio Vega. So yeah, no,
Yes.
Ray is he's one of my I actually let me pull this on camera. Come here. I got my Ray Mysterio Funko Pop right here.
Yes.
I love my dude Ray. So
Yes. So his eyes, I think what their context, I think I don't
mm-hmm.
know if there's man the context he put in his eye when it goes with the mask and his outfit, amazing. I mean, yeah, it makes him look very gorgeous still, but he looks like dude so well put together. I'm like, I love the costuming that he does, and like I said, he's been one of my favorite wrestlers. One of my favorite antagonist wrestlers, though, that started out was Dave Bautista. Bautista looked at a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he came on the scene, I think he may have been a little bit overweight, but he was bigger, like heavier. And I think he dropped a lot of weight when he started doing movies because he wasn't this kind of like he wasn't big as like later movies that he's been in and stuff. I mean, he still got the muscle, but he wasn't like detailed like when he first started out and everything.
Yeah, no, he's that dude. I like watching his stuff in '05 with Triple H
Mhm.
and that whole thing, and yeah, like that. Yeah,
And
Batista.
he's become one of the most beloved and respected not just wrestlers now, um not even just an actor but just a person and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And it's just like he knows that people call him daddy or zaddy and stuff. He knows that he could joke, and he knows when like he knows his roles in movies, but he's such loving, caring person. He there is um a clip about these people interviewing him about his rescue dogs and stuff. And uh he tells a story because he almost ends up crying about it. Yeah, one of his dogs, how he rescued them and everything. And one of the dogs had like a chain kind of like in the neck or something in the body, and somehow uh he left. He went to go shoot a movie, I think, and then came back to the adoption agency, um, and asked that about the dog and everything. Just like, has anyone adopted him? He said no, and he I mean they said no, and he said, can I adopt him? Adopt him or her, adopt the dog. And they said, yeah. And they opened the cage, all the other dogs went wild. And that one dog that was just like abused and stuff. I don't know if you heard, he had put out a a reward for if anyone could find out who was the person that did this to the dog, like the
No,
owner
I
of the
didn't know
dog
that.
and everything. Yeah, and they never found it and everything. And so like he says, um, I think it's a she. She came in as being as an abuser or being abused and left out with her freedom, living with him and everything. And she's just like, ever since that dog's been with him, she's been happy, she's been healthy, and everything. And it's just like, man, Batista is just a real one because, and I need to go buy his book. I think he has a biography book out, and he tells about him growing up in poor neighborhoods and
Mm,
everything, and just he understands why um he is the person that he is today because of stuff that happened in the past and everything. Like, I need to order his book and everything and really read it, and stuff. And I know he could play evil or good. He could be funny and stuff. But he's another person that I truly respect and love as as a person, as a wrestler. Well, from the wrestling scene, I should say.
Well, and he's that. I think, no offense to The Rock, I think he's the best actor to come out of there. I mean,
Hmm.
and what I say is The Rock is the bigger draw still. I mean, you put
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson in a movie, it's going to get people going to see it. But I think in terms of like acting skills, Batista's the better actor because, like what you said, he can play the good guy, he can play bad guy, he can be serious, he can be funny. Honestly, when you go see The Rock in any movie, he's playing the same character across all
Right.
all of the roles, and it's what he does good. It's very successful for him. But when we're talking about pure actors, Dave is such a good actor, and I mean, it starts with Guardians of the
And
Galaxy. I've seen him in these comedy roles, and now I'm seeing him in a lot of more drama roles, and I'm like, he does so good at that.
he was in like the Kickboxer 2 or something like that. He was in actual. He been in some fighter movies and stuff. And I think it's um because Knives Out. He's in the second one. That's on
Hmm.
Netflix. I think when he is having fun in a movie and being loud and just rambunctious and all of that, it makes watching him enjoyable. And even when he's like in Guardians, like being the joke at just or just like going out and being crazy, it puts a smile on your face. Something about him puts a smile on your face. I need to watch the his last movie that came out with the two dads and the daughter in the woods and stuff. Um I need to
Cabin in the
watch that
Woods,
one. Cabin
I
in the
think is
Woods,
what
yeah.
I've heard
I
really good things about that because of him saying that,
yeah,
like, it really shows his range.
yeah. I mean, he plays it psychotic yet sincere. Sincere in the fact that he's being serious, but because of him being serious and the way that Bautista's looking and what he does and stuff, uh, it's kind of scary. So
Right.
that I gotta buy it and I gotta watch it. So yeah, everything. Anything
Anyway,
else?
that
I'm sorry.
no, I've I've been focused on Tears of the Kingdom, Final Fantasy 16, and I've been watching that. And then you met and been watching. I've been going through old wrestling matches of the Rocks. So started from the very first one, pay per view, and going all the way till the end. So follow along on Twitter for that one.
Yes. Well, for me, let's jump in. Video game wise, I've been playing Ghostwire Tokyo. Just starting that up. I think I'm gonna try to 100% that one, like get everything. I don't know how long that's gonna take, but yeah, I cut a little bit. I put up Tears of the Kingdom on hold so I could play some other games and stuff. So I picked up the Tourist and I started playing that a little bit today. And it's okay from what I played of it. I'm like, I can't wait till I play a little bit more. Been playing Tom Clancy, Wildlands, Rainbow Six Wildlands, a game that I truly despise, because it's boring. But I just picked it up. It was like $16 because I felt like wanting to shoot stuff, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm playing this, but it is what it is. I kind of want to go back to the Division 2 and everything. And just like replay all the story stuff at the powerful level that I'm at. And I might do that for Wildlands too and everything. Um, put a hold on um One Piece Odyssey because the 15,000 cutscenes is getting annoying. It is so annoying and everything. And I kind of heard from that's kind of happening also in Final Fantasy 16 is that you get to a section, it's a long cutscene, you do some action, and then it's like a 15 to 20 minute cutscene. Like someone said, they were just like, it's been 41 minutes and I'm still in the cutscene, haven't did anything.
Yeah, it's very cinematic, and it jumps in. I'm granted, I think I'm only about 5 or 6 hours in at this point. I
Mhm.
know Dan Murphy's a little bit ahead of me. We were talking about this, and he's a little bit. Yeah, he said he's a little bit. I think closer to the 8 or 10 hour mark. So yeah, I mean it's very cinematic. It doesn't bother me too much.
Mhm.
I mean, I usually get my bowl of cereal when I get my cutscenes popping up or something like that. I've got my bowl of cereal or a can of I got a can of soda. I usually take that to do that. But yeah, I mean, and you can skip them, but it's you don't want to just given that. But yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy 16 is it's a lot more cinematic than what. And I haven't played 15, so I
Mhm.
can't really compare it. But from what I understand, it is a lot more cinematic than 15 was.
15. Yeah, I need to play 15. I have 15 of my series on Xbox. Um, but I need to just like I may just restart it from the beginning. Or probably just still pick it up and read the tutorials and stuff on the moves and everything and just like bum rush that game and get through it. So
Right.
So, um, last but not least, I played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. I still started playing as Leonardo, just doing the first round, just beating stuff up and everything, and had a little fun with that. There is a lot of Switch games that I mean, I will be returning back to my Nintendo Switch, but my Xbox Series X needed some love, because it's been a while since I like really dedicated time to play that system. So, I'm going to be like going back and forth. Hopefully in August, I think my last check in August, I'll get a PlayStation 5 and get Final Fantasy 16. Um, let's see what's up. If not, hopefully Final Fantasy 16 comes to Series X. Like, come on, Square, because they said that it's only a 6 month exclusive. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's 6 months. Yeah, I don't know about Microsoft. I think PC is on the radar, but there's been nothing announced for sure on where that would
So
go.
it's only on PS5. It's no PC version, right?
No, not right now.
Okay.
And it's just PS5, not even PS4. Which some of these battles, the PS5 is the only thing that could handle that. Like between the PS4 and the PS5, the PS5 can
Mm-hmm.
handle that. So I mean, your Series X should be able to handle that too. So
Yeah.
just given everything, but yeah, it really was developed with the PS5 in mind, like
Mm-hmm.
these next gen consoles in mind. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know where they go for after the 6 months are up, but that would put it like right around Christmas time. December
Yes.
December 22nd would be 6 months since it comes out. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But I know there'd been talks of a PC port or PC version of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I
And
would
knowing
imagine it'd make its way to Xbox Series X
they'll probably
at
do
some
some
point.
DLC. Yeah, we'll probably see something at the Game Awards around that time. So hopefully something. It was we who was I talking to about this? Um, I think it was talking about Corey. And I was talking to, telling him like we weren't recording or anything. I'm like, it's so funny how Microsoft has a good relationship with Sega. Nintendo has a good relationship with Sega. Um, PlayStation has somewhat a good relationship with Sega, but I'm surprised that Microsoft is more focused on Sega and Atlas, trying to get their works onto their system. Um, and Sony is more interested in having Square Enix, and Nintendo is just getting the best of both worlds for some
Hmm.
reason. And still, out of everything, Nintendo is still coming out on top. And I'm not knocking Final Fantasy 16. I'm not knocking Persona 3 remake or anything. But if those games were to be announced for the Switch Deluxe, um, I bet you people will be hype and go and get those games on that console.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think with at least Final Fantasy 16,
Hmm.
they wouldn't be able to handle the Switch as it stands now would not be able to handle that game. I think if you like launch it with the Switch Deluxe or whatever the next gen console is for, you might be,
Hmm.
it would definitely bring in a lot of people. And we've seen that Nintendo doesn't, they've always had that family friendly mantra, but they branch out. They don't have a problem, doing that. So I mean, 16 would fit at home, would feel great on Switch. My only concern is just that that game does a lot. Like there's a lot going on in those action sequence, especially
Yeah.
when the summons are going on. So it would
Hmm.
need to be able to handle that because that's the thing that's starting to overheat some PS5s. Although it's not regular, because a lot of
Yeah.
people I've seen they'll say it happened, and then for every one person that says it happened, there's like 50 who say no, it didn't happen to them. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
And I
it
think
it
yeah,
pushes the PS5.
yeah, and I think a lot of Switch players and owners are happy to see Final Fantasy 16 doing well on PlayStation and selling, and but I think there's so much focus on what that our own console is getting or Switch is getting. You see that people are, yeah, great, Final Fantasy 16, and then you see the insane reactions of Super Mario RPG.
Hmm.
You know, like Final Fantasy 16 because it's out, it's doing good press on social media. But people are excited to play Super Mario RPG. The Persona 3 remake, like even the announcement and stuff, that's disappeared. To talk about that stuff, about those Persona games, have literally disappeared.
Right. Yeah, and I mean Super Mario RPG. That's the thing that they have, and it always bodes well. Is when you've got a game that's such a cult classic like that one is,
Mhm.
people are going to get behind it when you remake it. I mean, it's like Sony announced that they were going to put the Legend of Dragoon on like the PS Plus Premium and sell it for $10, people lost their mind because that's just a niche classic. And then when they got it, they were like, "Oh no, this is worse than I remember." I mean, it's just that I mean, when you can do it right with a game that's steeped in nostalgia, you're going to
Yeah.
you're going to get the hype for that even over some of the newer games. You know, so I think, if they can stick the landing, which I do think they can, judging by that was by the trailer from the direct, I think that's when they can stick the landing really well on. So I'm excited to
Yes.
see that because I have the original on my Wii U and I haven't played it yet. I think I might try and play it before the remake comes out, but I'm excited for that one. That's going to be a fun one.
Yes. Well, everybody, that's what's been jumping on our side. Now it's time to point it out. And I am pointing this one out. And Josh, you probably know where I'm about to go with this. If not, I will be surprised. Now we know Microsoft and the FTC have been in court, giving their testimonies. And at the time of the recording, this is the fourth day of the court battle, and Bobby Kotick took the stand um, to give his testimony. And there was one thing that he particular said that I wanted to point out. And he said that he regrets that he didn't put a Call of Duty game on Nintendo Switch. And he gave his reasons. And I texted Corey and said, "You didn't regret putting Call of Duty on Nintendo Switch." Because the thing about it is that this this system has sold close to 125 million, and you see every month before that number even came, that Switch was number one. You see tons of games being number one, being sold like crazy. Doom hitting number one. So you had 6 years to put a Call of Duty game on Nintendo Switch, but you decided not to. You didn't care about Switch. You didn't care about putting Activision games really on the Nintendo console. Overwatch came late. The Crash games came late. Spiral came late. Tony Hawk came late. Diablo 3 came late. Like, you knew that the system in these games were selling. So, how do you have regret not putting one particular franchise on a very successful system?
Is the regret that he didn't put it on and get and cash in on that? He's like, oh man, I wish I would have got that money from that. Now, not. I feel bad that I didn't put it on the system
I don't know, but
because that's what
it's
I would regret in that situation. If I'm seeing the success that the Switch has, and I'm like,
mhm.
yeah, I regret putting it on there because I regret not getting all of that money that could have came from having your game on the Switch. I mean, yeah,
if
you
done
might.
right.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said if done right. If you took the time, the love and care, your Call of Duty game did not have to be like the Xbox or PlayStation. You could have went a whole different route with the game. If it played great and it had some good online functionality, people would have went and brought it. The
Honestly,
Witcher
you
3. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's one of those franchises that the name alone is going to generate the interest. So, like you said, you could
Mhm.
do something different than what's on PlayStation or Xbox. I mean, heck, we've talked about this before. Square Enix has a different approach to what type of games they put on the Switch versus what they put on Xbox and PlayStation, and it works really well for them. If you took a different approach by putting Call of Duty on Switch and maybe did something that works with the system rather than trying to bring what you have at PlayStation and bring it down to whatever the Switch can handle. You know, if you do something that's dedicated to the Switch, it's going to do successful because other companies show you that it will if you put the time and the
Yeah.
effort into it and you do something, you know your limitations, you know what you have on the Switch, and just work within those restraints and make something good. That's all you got
Right.
to do.
And nobody was really asking. Like I understand, nobody on the Nintendo community was asking for Call of Duty. We didn't ask for Doom. We didn't ask for The Witcher 3. But Doom showed up. Guess what? It hit 1 million. The Witcher 3 showed up. It hit good numbers. In fact, more people. I was telling Corey this. I'm like, it's crazy that The Witcher 3 has been out for a whole bunch of other consoles, and yet most people who beat the game beat it on Nintendo Switch. And they announced that they beat it on Nintendo Switch.
I mean, it's the hardware that makes it so easy to play a game like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy my PlayStation 5, but sometimes it's I'm tethered to the TV. I can't play those games and I mean they're trying to do that with the Project Q, but I mean it's not any Nintendo Switch. If I really wanted to, I could take Tears of the Kingdom, put it into my little case and take it and play it on my lunch break if I wanted. Come
Right.
back home, stick it in the stand, play it. It's just, if the hardware doesn't show its cracks and you put the effort into it, and Monolith Sauce showed you that you can do a lot with on the Switch with Xenoblade. If you put that time and effort into it, people will play your game because they will take it on the go with them, and that's what
Yeah.
makes Switch so appealing. So if you can put your games on there and do it right, people are going to play it on the Switch because I mean, I'm busy. I don't have time all the time to sit down and sit in front of a TV to play. Sometimes I got to play on the go. Sometimes I got to my wife wants to watch TV, so I'll play Switch handheld. If you can put a game there that works, I will play it. And I think a lot of people have that mentality.
Yeah, and it's so weird that Bobby Kotick just feels that just because Nintendo in your mind you thinking that this is a kid system. I'm like, what kid system is doing 125 million? What what kind of kid? What kind of kids are buying all of these games? Because trust me, a 6 or 7 year old is not buying Fire Emblem's Three Hopes or Three Houses.
Right.
Like they're not buying Resident Evil or like some of the like Astral Chain and Bayonetta 3 and stuff. Those games are not for kids. Kids are not buying these big games and stuff. So I'm like, how are you not paying attention, or why is no one at Activision paying attention, seeing that Nintendo is consistently being successful? And I understand he made his money off of Xbox and PlayStation and PC, but even he said that shoot, the most players that he have from Call of Duty is on mobile over
Yeah.
PC and console.
Well, and the thing too that baffles me about this, and here's the thing, I don't get it because people always knock Nintendo as being, oh, it's too kiddie, it's too family friendly. But I'm like, look at any other console, and they have that balance. Why can't Nintendo
Mhm.
have that balance? I mean, you go to like PlayStation, for example, you can go play Final Fantasy 16, Ghost of Tsushima, all these other games that are clearly not for children, but then you can go play Crash Bandicoot, Ratchet and Clank, um, Spyro back in the day. Like their game, like you can play. They have a range. Microsoft does it too, and Nintendo is no different in the range that they have. Like you mentioned, those games. They have a list of games that are for kids and a list of games that are not for kids, but still Nintendo gets shackled with that oh it's too kiddie, it's
Right.
too much for babies or whatever the stigma is around Nintendo. It's just ridiculous because I mean The Witcher 3 is not, and that's one of Nintendo's best performing games. It's not Nintendo,
Yeah,
I know that, but I mean it did really well on the system. And like you
yeah,
said, people are admitting they beat it on Switch rather than others. So it's like you can be both just because the marketing is a lot more colorful and, you know, because whenever I think of Microsoft and Sony, it's a little bit more sleek. That seems to be what the marketing approach is. Nintendo's colorful, real like happy music. Just because they do that does not mean it's a kid system. It's just their approach and the way that I mean we just all know that that's what Nintendo is. Like that's their marketing
yeah,
approach. They've been doing that for years. I mean, minus the N64, they did lean into the attitude of the late '90s and start saying like, "Are you going to play or are you going to suck?" If in the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time commercials, I don't know if you remember though, but that I mean that's tapping into the attitude of the '90s. I mean that just everything
mhm.
sucked in the '90s.
Well, and okay, so this part of the story, everybody's coming from Nintendo Life. And the story says during day four of what is already proven to be a surprisingly gripping trial related to Microsoft's planned acquisition of Activision Blizzard, Activision CEO Bobby Kotick took to the stand and stated his deep regret in not supporting the Nintendo Switch more over the course of its lifespan so far. As reported by Tom Warren at The Verge, Kotick stated that I made a bad judgment in not bringing its flagship franchise Call of Duty to the Nintendo Switch, claiming that when he saw a prototype of the system, he thought Nintendo was trying to do too much and that it wouldn't be a success. Regarding the Switch, Kotick then goes on to state that it's probably the second biggest video game system of all time. And Nintendo, like I said, if we're talking about home consoles specifically, then yes, Codex spot on. The Nintendo Switch has now sold over 125 million units, trailing behind the PlayStation 2 at over 155. But if they were going to count handhelds, the Nintendo DS is beating it at 154.02 million. So it's just like regret. I'm like, dude, you had all of this time, um, to put a game out. You see the numbers. going over and over that Switch is being number one. These games are staying as number one. At you might get a Mario Kart 9, but it's still in the top 10 everywhere.
Well, and I mean, you think about it, you like you said, yeah, that excuse might have flown if this was like a year or two after the Switch launched. We're
Hmm.
sitting here 6 years, 7 years after the Switch is launched, and you had your time. You saw the success that that thing was building. The start of the pandemic in 2020, the Switch was like the hardest thing to find because people were buying them up and everything. It's like by 3 years into its life cycle, it is telling you that like this thing is so hot that you cannot buy it and scalpers are selling it for double the price. That is like what is telling you that this thing is like popular and here to stay.
Two games were like the biggest thing: Animal Crossing and Ring Fit Adventure.
Hmm.
That's, and I understand the gym stuff, and I understand Animal Crossing, which is like hype and stuff, but that was selling the system during the
Right.
pandemic.
Yeah,
So
and I
you
mean
had,
it's
uh,
like you got a bunch of other games too there that like Breath of the Wild carried that thing for so long. Even if
yep.
Animal Crossing was brand new at the start of the pandemic, great. But Breath of the Wild, people were still playing Breath of the Wild, like who got it at launch and they were still playing it. That was still the thing selling. That's the thing that got me to get finally on the Switch because I got the Switch in 2020. I didn't get it at launch. I delayed a little bit behind that and I got it for
Hmm.
my birthday. And Breath of the Wild was the game that I wanted with that. So like that's the game that sold it. You had your new games coming in, and Nintendo's always had, even through kind of the pandemic years, you still had good games coming out over that time. It
Yeah.
wasn't like where PlayStation 5 had to, beg its users to, well, we're going to make it backwards compatible, which is good, but then they were like offering games for like from the previous gen to the PS, but like they were giving you would get a free PS5 upgrade of your PS4 games. Like they were really struggling in the beginning part there, and pandemic was a big part of that, but Nintendo like they built up enough momentum that when the pandemic hit, they were able to have to scale back, but still cruise right on through those years
Hmm.
very well. And I mean, during that time, we got when did Xenoblade 2 came out? That one was a big one. Animal Cross.
2018,
Okay, so never
18 or
mind.
19. Yeah.
But like Animal Crossing helped carry that one. Triangle Strategy in 22 was big. Pokemon Legends Arceus,
Hmm.
um, Three Houses, and all its other spin-off games. Like it just they had that steady stream through those pandemic years, and not a lot of companies can say that, and that's really helped sustain it. And so it's like when your excuse is like if you bring up this excuse a year or two into it, then okay, maybe I'll forgive you on that one. But where you're like, you had the chance to still put it on there. You could have hopped on that train at any point
and
and enjoyed that.
and now you want to make a comment because now you on the court stand testifying. It's just like you didn't, and that's why I'm just like you didn't regret it. And Corey, I said Corey like my thoughts about it, and we're probably gonna talk about it on Nintendo Power Block. But I was heated when I read that. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, so that's my pointing out, everybody. Josh, I'm gonna hand it over to you because you got the boss rush banner. Uh, so what are we going to be discussing tonight? What banner piece did you choose?
So I chose from our good friend David Lasby. What video game ruined other games for you? Now, I love Lasby. This is a little bit of a clickbaity title, and I don't mean that in a bad way, David. But what he's talking about here basically is a game that was so good that it made it hard to, want to play another game just because you just loved how good that is. Let me find a good line here where he
Mm-hmm.
described this. So in this one, he talks about, okay, here we go. Like an exquisite meal or a work of art that speaks to a particular need at the right time of your life, a generational video game holds the same power to move, to transform, to inspire. For today's Boss Rush Banter, we want to ask you which games you've played over the years that have quote unquote ruined other games for you for a period of time by leaving you so emotionally moved that all other games fail to live up to the experience. And he goes on here, and this was really spawned out of him. He beat Tears of the Kingdom recently, and so he was saying how good that game was. That it's just made him not know what else to pick up after that because of how good that game was. And he said that another one that did that recently, the Dead Space remake for him, that was a really big game given how much he loves the Alien franchise. But some of his early ones, remembering, are A Link to the Past was one that it just really hit. So I guess the question here, Ed, what game has just really stood out that you just were, I don't know if I can play anything else. This game was so good.
Oh, there's a lot. So, um, I'm going to start off with Sleeping Dogs, and it makes Grand Theft Auto look terrible. Just it Sleeping Dogs got so much right with having a storyline that's memorable and characters that I care about, gameplay that was engrossing and engaging. The driving was easy because I love the fact with Sleeping Dogs is that they gave you a level where you didn't have to drive, all you had to do was shoot. And I
Hmm.
love that. Of course, being able to buy clothes and um, you know, just knowing that you're an undercover cop and doing these missions and stuff, um, and how things unfold, you just really feel like they cared about this game and this series. Because Sleeping Dogs used to be the true crime series, and they lost the name and they had to do another one. So it's sad to see that it never got a part two and stuff. But like playing sleeping dogs, and even after you beat it and do the DLC, it's hard to go back to Grand Theft Auto because Grand Theft Auto feels just old, and it feels terrible in its controls. It doesn't have anything memorable about it, and it's just like this is, yeah, it's paid by the numbers, but this is just archaic. Like this is just old and not fun and not good. Like it really feels lazy. With all the stuff there that created. Another game is Titanfall 2. I played Titanfall 2, and it at the time I was playing Titanfall 2 and Destiny. And Titanfall 2 made Destiny look bad in comparison. And
Show
it
your
looked
ears,
made it
Corey.
it made it up. The Corey already knows this. I'm like, because Titanfall 2 being at 60, feeling like at 60 frames per second, being fast, and just, all the guns and like the story matter and everything, and you really felt connected to your characters, that it made Destiny, definitely with the speed of Destiny before it got its upgrade and got the 60 frames, the speed of Destiny felt slow. It felt so off. And now the game is better because it has the 60 frames per second, or up to 60 frames per second. Um it plays better when the speed is a little bit faster. That same thing with DMC Devil May Cry when they got the turbo mode. Like Ninja Theory made Devil May Cry, like, I understand that Devil May Cry 1 is still a lot of people's favorite and everything. And DMC, Devil May Cry 5 is good. But DMC did something with the music, with the characters, with the level design, with the combat. The combat, like, again, the combos and stuff is engaging. It's so addictive and it's so fun. And it's just, it feels so good, and then you play Devil May Cry 4, and like it's a terrible game. I understand people might have their problem with 2, but Devil May Cry 4 is a terrible, problematic game. And it's hard playing DMC, Devil May Cry series, knowing that it's not DMC Devil May Cry from Ninja Theory. You know, Fire Emblem Engage with a lot of people. Three Houses was so good, and even people who are playing Fire Emblem has went back to Three Houses, even though they beat it all the way. They went back. They were just like, "This is the Fire Emblem that I love." Engage is good, but I cannot play a Fire Emblem game that doesn't play like Three Houses. That's a
Right.
lot of sentiment from a lot of people.
Well, and I mean, it's for Fire Emblem. That's something that Awakening laid the foundation for, and they built it
Hmm.
all the way up to that. And Three Houses is kind of the culmination of what Awakening started, and now it's Three Houses. And from what I understand, because I haven't played Engage yet, it takes it back to a pre-Awakening time, and a lot of people were like, "Well, I mean, I want Three Houses. I want more of that." I mean, I
Right.
think your
And
diehards liked Engage, but I think a lot of the new players that Awakening on brought in, it just didn't land with them for some reason,
yeah.
for that reason.
And I think that's why when it comes to wrestling games, and why people was upset that Ukes is not working on it or it came from THQ, is because they knew the formula and they executed their games. They will work on some things, prefer some things, break some things that were, and the stuff that they were putting out once they got their groove and knew what to do, they were making hit games when it came to wrestling. And then you started playing the 2K games, and it's questionable content.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, it really strayed from what, because you go from WWF at the time doing ones based on on their pay-per-views, and
mhm,
you know and WCW having their WCW NWO revenge, like games that are very, you know they felt like extensions of the television product, whereas now it's just as formulaic as Madden or NBA 2K, and WWE 2K23 is a good game. They've really started to up it a little. It's gotten better. 22 did a good job. 23 built on that. But I mean, for the longest time, like you said, like WWF No Mercy really ruined a lot of people because of how good that game was back in the N64.
yeah,
Or even you go back to oh, what am I? It's got Brock Lesnar on the cover. Here Comes the Pain. It's like WWE Here Comes the Pain. I think that was '02 or '03 that one came out on the GameCube and that generation. So yeah, I mean, those games really just carried a lot. And you get to today where it's you're chasing that, and it's hard to chase that good of a game without trying to go back to that time. And
yeah,
it's hard. I don't know if they can. The 2K23 has been great, but it's from what I've understand, it's not those games, those past games from the N64 era.
yeah. What about you, Josh?
Okay, so I had three come to mind, and I'll go through them rather quickly. The first one goes back to my childhood, Pokemon Gold. Um,
Yes.
that game made me. I left Pokemon because of that game. I came back recently because I do enjoy Pokemon, but
Hmm.
Pokemon Gold was so. And I only say Gold because that was the version I had. I mean, Silver, Crystal's like the definitive edition from that generation, but Gold was the one I grew up with. I had that, and I played that. I remember late nights as a kid playing that game with friends. Anyway, but that game, because when you got in there and you could go back to the Kanto region after you beat the Elite Four, that was it. It was a walk off for me. And then you fought Red at the top of Mount Silver, and
Hmm.
I'm like, it's not just that it's some dude named Red. It is your character from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Like, it is the same character. He's got amped up Pokemon from that game after that, I was like, I can't play another game. And I Brad Melville tells me all the time, he's like, you really missed out on some great Pokemon games. And you know
You
what?
did.
I did. I fully acknowledge that. But because of Gold and what it did, I was like, I can't go. I'm like, Ruby and Sapphire won't top that in my mind. I've played them since, and I'm like, oh man, these are good games. I missed out on that. I haven't even played the GBA versions of those games. I played Alpha Sapphire, so I had the remake um, of that generation. But yeah, I mean, I missed some games. I have Platinum in my drawer to play. So I missed a lot of good Pokemon games. I didn't come back till Pokemon X and Y, but yeah, gold version really just I love that game so much. It ranks in my top 10, maybe top 5 of games of all time, and it's just I couldn't play Pokemon for 15 years after that because of how good I
Wow.
thought Pokemon Gold was. And granted, there was some stuff in my life where I didn't play a ton of video games through high school, so that added into it. But Pokemon Gold, I didn't pick up Ruby and Sapphire because I'm like, nope, nothing can top Gold, Pokemon Gold. So there's that one. From a gameplay perspective, I think I'll go with Metroid Prime, the GameCube version.
Ah,
Love
yes.
that one. Has been my favorite game for years since it came out. So what are we talking? '02. So 20, man, that game's been out for over 20 years now. So yeah, best my favorite game of all time, which many people listening know I'm a big RPG fan, but Metroid is the game. Like that is my favorite game. And after I played that, I felt and I felt like Samus at the end of that game when she takes off her helmet and just looks at the whole ruins after she beat the Metroid Prime, and she's just you know soaking it all in. That's how I was after I beat that game. I'm like, man, this is such a good game. And then
Yes.
the last one I'll jump to is a really recent one for me. Ys 8, The Lacrimosa of Donna. Um,
Ooh.
that game was so, action RPGs get kind of a bad rap in the RPG community. I understand why. And this one is a very it has a lot of RPG elements. You level, you have stats, you build up your armor, your weapons, everything like that. But combat is live action, very similar to Zelda. You focus on your combos, everything like that. But that game, that story, that game, it cemented my love for JRPGs. And yes, it's not your typical turn based one, but that one just was so good. I played it and I don't think I picked up another game. It was like a month before I picked up another game because I just was like, man, this game
Hmm.
is good. And the story was for me was just really really good. So yeah, that's a recent one. I played that back end of 2020, beginning of 21, and when I beat that one, I was like, I took like a couple weeks off from video games because I'm like every time I'd put it up, I'm like, nope, it's not Ys 8. But no, those are my three that really just were stand out: Pokemon Gold, Metroid Prime, and Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Donna.
Nice. Now, has there been like one game that you have played like recently that it feels better now than it felt back in the past, in a sense?
So let me see. So like I played it back in the past, and I was like, that was all right. But then I play it now, and I'm like, oh man, what did I miss out on this one? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to remember because I don't think so off the top of my head. And I'm playing some retro games right now on the side. I'm playing Golden Sun, but I never played that one the first time around. I beat see Final Fantasy VII was not one I played, but I didn't have a PlayStation 1 at the time, so
Hmm.
I beat that. I don't think right now. I don't think there is. That's not to say that that won't change because I've been really focused on playing new games right now. But yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head, Ed. I don't know if I have one recently.
So for me, it's Contra, but it's the Famicom version. And the reason why it's the Famicom version is because it had cutscenes to tell a story. I never knew the full story of Contra. All I knew is the 30-man code and seeing the item blow up at the end, spoilers. But I didn't know that there was literally more to it. So when I played the Famicom version on the Contra collection, I was just like, oh, this is a whole bunch of stuff that I did not know that was cut out from that game. And it made the game better. Even though that everything that you play in Contra is the same thing that you play on the American version, on the NES version. It was just the
Okay.
added cutscenes. That was just like, wow. And it's more detailed than the original Contra. Because since it was kind of like on a computer, kind of, there's animation in the trees that's blown in the breeze. You don't get that on the NES version.
Gotcha. So I think I do have one that might be this way, and I've been meaning to replay it for a while. And David Lasby is going to die when I say this. A Link to the Past, I beat it initially, and I'm too young to. I didn't play that game when it originally came out in the SNES.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I played it on the Wii U, I want to say 2014, 2015, so it's been a while. But that game at the time just didn't click with me. Like I beat it to say I did, but for whatever reason, I just it was it might have been the difficulty, it might have been I wasn't familiar with top down Zeldas, and so I didn't really play that one. I think if I go back and play that one now, I would really like it because I beat a Link Between Worlds recently. I've gotten more familiar with top-down Zelda because that was really my first top-down Zelda. I played the Oracle games since. I played the original Link's Awakening. I played Minish Cap and done well with them. I think if I go back and play Link to the Past, I could come back and tell you that that's a game that I didn't like initially, but I think I would like it a lot better now. So I
Okay.
need to go do that. That's my homework.
Yes. Is there a a terrible game that makes you stop playing that makes you stop playing the series or revisiting the series or want to go ever forward?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I'm kind of picky with what I play. Like I try to make sure I'm going to like it, and I feel like I'm pretty spot
Mm-hmm.
on with that. I mean, and there have been some games that I've played on the N64 that I mean they actually, you know what? Here's the one that I did not enjoy, and it turned me off of this franchise until only recently. Um, growing up, I always knew Final Fantasy was a big deal. My age puts me that the first game that I really remember is 7. I was 6 when that
Mm-hmm.
one came out. So I remember 8, 7, 8, 9, 10 all being big deals. And growing up, I never had that console, so I never played it. It was one of those mystique things that I'm like, "Oh, cool. I'd love to play Final Fantasy." So when one game came out on the GameCube, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, I thought, "Oh, finally, I'm getting a Final Fantasy game. I'm gonna play it." I played it for 30 minutes and hated it. Did not like that game, and it really made me like, "Oh, maybe this is just not a franchise for me." Didn't want to touch a Final Fantasy game until I started getting into RPGs, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to play 7." I tried 7, changed my mind on the franchise. But and that Crystal Chronicles game, which I know is a spin-off and not traditional Final Fantasy, that
Mm-hmm.
game really almost ruined the franchise for me. And again, I didn't have
Oh,
a PlayStation or any means of playing other Final Fantasy games until much later in life, but um Yeah, that one. Whenever I saw Final Fantasy, I'd always be like, I'm not sure on that. I remember Crystal Chronicles. So there's a game that
Oh,
almost ruined Final Fantasy for me.
I just had what game was it for me? That it was just so um luckily it was almost gonna be Destiny. Because the first game is questionable. Actually, let me rephrase that. Destiny and Halo on
That
Xbox.
you didn't like Halo?
I don't like Halo.
Okay.
Now, I will say I love Halo 5. Halo Infinite is a wonderful game. Halo 4 is great. But that first Halo trying to control that Warhawk was like pushing rocks in a garbage can. I'm like, this is terrible. Um, Medal of Honor Warfighter, that that one, it was so weird because it was Medal of Honor. I love Medal of Honor Frontlines, and the reboot of Medal of Honor I enjoyed too. I played that all the way through. I played Warfighter, and I was just like, I'll never play another Medal of Honor game ever. It was it destroyed not my love, but my want to play that. Like this, it was so terrible. I'm like, this is not a good game. Josh, the sniping was not working in the game.
Oh no.
So there's like I think it's like the fourth level, and you gotta snipe something that's on the building. I have my sniper rifle. I had to hold the left button because you gotta breathe in to keep it straight so it wouldn't be wobbling. They was trying to go for that realism. I did that. The target is in my sight, is in my aim thing. I'm shooting it and it does not register at all. I have to lift the thing where uh the scope is not even on the item. So I'm just shooting the sky and it said great job. I'm like, are you serious? I struggled through that game. Not because it was challenging, it was because it was terrible. And I was like, I'll never play this series ever again.
I haven't played Halo in a while. I think the last Halo game I played was Halo 2. And it's only because I'd go over to a friend's house and play
Hmm.
on their Xbox because I never had. That's the one system I don't think I've ever owned. Is actually I lied. I've had an Xbox 360, but prior to that, I'd never. I played some Halo, but not a ton. So
Yeah.
it's Halo
And
2, and I
like
think I played a little of Halo 3.
Yeah, and like I said, Halo 4 is fun. I do enjoy Halo 5. I think Halo 5 is I mean, I like Halo 6. I mean, Halo Infinite, I think that's good. But I think I like Halo 5 better because of the cutscenes and some of the gameplay. I know a lot of people had a problem with it and everything, but out of all the Halo games, I enjoyed 5 the most. With Infinite being number 2.
And Infinite's the newest one, right?
Yes, it's the latest one. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So But I think that's going to be it, Josh. Anything else from the banner?
No, I think we've covered every aspect of that, but I'm going to give a quick shout out to we've got a ton of great banners over on the website. Head over to bossrush.net to come check out some of the banters that we have cooking for you, and with a lot of talented writers. We put that up every day, so come join in on the discussion. Head over to bossrush.net.
Yes, I had to turn in my banters and um, my article. I got to bring it writing my two reviews tonight and tomorrow, um, so I could turn it in and you guys could do your copy editing thing and hopefully people will see that Eddie V has returned to writing. So, I cannot wait for vacation so bad. I need
I
one
know.
so much.
We
Uh,
going next week. We're going with my wife's family. We're going up
mm,
to Idaho and spending 4 days up there. And I'm like, man, I'm excited for that. It might not be Disney World, but it's kind of nice. It's a little nice to get you know out of the city and just spend some time. It's a small town called Lava Hot Springs, Idaho, and
mhm.
it's up in the mountains, so kind of a mountainy town. So I do enjoy getting out of town for a while. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yay. Well, with that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we will see you next time on Jump Off Point. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support. This episode of Jump Off Point is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the Boss Rush family of podcasts, head to bossrush.net or our Patreon at patreon.com/bossrushmedia. Thanks for helping us build something better.